I came home on my 23rd birthday with a grocery store cake. Mom said, "No celebration this year. Your sister needs our full attention." So I packed my bags that night and disappeared. Years later, I am a millionaire, and they are all begging for scraps. That pathetic cake cost me $6. Chocolate. With "Happy Birthday" written in blue frosting that was already softening in the summer heat. It was the only acknowledgement I was going to get, so I bought it for myself after an 8-hour shift at the hardware store. But as I walked through the front door of the house, I realized even that simple gesture was too much for my family to handle. My parents, Patricia and Dennis, were sitting in the living room with my sister, Haley, positioned like some kind of formal intervention. The air was thick with rehearsed sincerity. Haley sat on the worn leather couch, looking appropriately distressed, a practiced vulnerability already filling her eyes. Mom looked up, and the look on her face was not pity, but staged disappointment. "Larry, we have decided there will not be any birthday celebration this year," she announced. Not a question, but a final statement. Haley has been feeling overshadowed lately and needs the family's full attention right now. You understand. The words were background noise. Slept. I set the small cake down on the coffee table, the fragile frosting contrasting against the scuffed wood. This was not the first time my needs had been erased for Haley's benefit, but it felt like the final, definitive stroke of the eraser. I looked at the three of them. My mother, the chief planner, my father, the defeated observer, and Haley, the perpetual star. The true breaking point had happened just 3 hours earlier. I had come home early and heard Haley's voice from her room. Her door was cracked open, and she was giggling, spinning lies into her phone. "Yeah. I already told Mom I need extra attention right now," Haley whispered with fake sweetness. "I told him I have been feeling really depressed and overlooked." Mom bought it completely. "She is going to tell him tonight that we are not celebrating, because I need family support." I stood frozen in the hallway as she delivered the cold hard. The best part is that nobody knows I flunked out of college 3 weeks ago. That dismissal letter is going to arrive any day now. But by then, I will have convinced them that I dropped out because I was too stressed from the family focusing on Larry instead of me. Haley continued, that cruel, familiar laugh following. "I already have Mom convinced that we need to spend Larry's birthday talking about my feelings and my future. By the time that letter arrives, they will be so worried about my mental health that they will not even care about the $40,000 they wasted on my tuition." $40,000. Slept. They had told me they could not help me with my own college expenses because money was tight. That number shattered something inside me that had been cracking for years. So when Mom sat forward now, delivering her prepared speech, I knew exactly what I was seeing. Haley had orchestrated the entire cancellation to create a crisis that would preempt the truth of her academic failure. She was using my birthday as a distraction, turning herself into the victim before the money and the transcripts arrived. "Larry, you need to understand that Haley is going through a very difficult time right now," Mom insisted. "She is feeling like the family does not appreciate her enough, and we need to show her she is our priority. Your birthday happens every year, but Haley's emotional well-being is fragile. We are going to spend the evening talking about Haley's feelings and how we can better support her dreams. No celebration, no cake, no presents." I looked at Dad, but Dennis just stared at his hands, defeated as always. He had given up fighting years ago. Haley then piped up, trembling with manufactured emotion. I am sorry, Larry. I know this is hard for you, but I just feel so invisible sometimes. Like nobody sees how much I am struggling. I need to know that this family cares about me, that I am not just forgotten. Forgotten. The girl whose face was on every wall said she felt forgotten. The decision was immediate. I set the sad little cake firmly on the coffee table, looked at each of them one last time, and walked straight to my room without a word. I had nothing left to say. They likely thought I was going to sulk like always. They had no idea I was packing for a life without them. Slept. My room was small and exactly as I had left it when I was 5 years old, because Haley needed the larger one for her pageant costumes. I moved through it methodically, gathering every important document and all the clothes I actually cared about. 2 large duffel bags and a backpack held the sum total of my 23 years in that house. It was strange how quickly an entire life could be disassembled. Around midnight, I heard footsteps outside my door. A soft knock. Larry, can I come in? I opened the door. Dad stood there, looking older than his 48 years, his shoulders permanently slumped. For a brief moment, I hoped he had finally found his voice, ready to demand justice for me. Instead, he pulled his worn leather wallet from his pocket and slowly counted out 5 crumpled $100 bills. He handed them to me. This is all I have right now, he said quietly, his eyes focused on the floor. I know things are not fair. I know we failed you, but I just do not know how to fix it anymore. Your mother, Haley, I just do not have any fight left. I took the $500. It was more cash than he had ever given me for anything, and the way it came with a full admission of his defeat and my wasted childhood made it feel worse than worthless. It was a bribe for his own peace. Thanks, I said flatly. The word felt hollow. He looked up, meeting my eyes briefly. Where will you go? Does it matter? He looked like I had slapped him. But he did not argue, just nodded once, his shoulders sinking lower, and walked back down the hallway. I left the house at 2 o'clock in the morning, quietly loading the bags into my beat-up Honda Civic. I drove until I reached the one place I knew I would be welcome without explanation. Grandpa Walter's small house across town. Walter opened the door in his bathrobe, took one look at the 3 bags and my face, and simply stepped aside. He did not need an explanation. Birthday went well, I take it, he said dryly, heading toward the kitchen. He understood instantly. I told him everything. The conversation I had overheard, the canceled party, the $500 from Dad. Walter listened intently, quietly making hot chocolate. When I finished, Walter set his mug down. You can stay here as long as you need, he finally said. The spare room is yours. No rent, no conditions. His eyes held mine, sharp and serious. Just promise me, you will finish college and make something of yourself. The best revenge is living well, I promised. As I walked into the small, clean spare room and set down my meager possessions, I felt the first sense of unburdening. I had traded the suffocating weight of my old house for the clean, conditional promise of a new future. I did not know how I would turn Walter's simple philosophy into reality, but I knew I would try. Walter's spare room was more than a bed. It was a launching pad for the life I chose. My schedule became relentless. I worked full time at the hardware store during the day, where I had a decent employee discount and invaluable access to tools and materials. I maxed out my credit hours at State College, taking summer classes to finish my degree in business administration in 3 years instead of 4. Sleep was a luxury I could not afford. The focus was absolute. Walter was the only lifeline. He revealed the small college fund he had been secretly building for me, which held $8,000, enough to cover my local tuition if I kept working. More importantly, he began teaching me his old trade, real estate investment. Walter had dabbled in property renovation decades ago, and he knew how to spot undervalued assets. We spent evenings poring over county records and auction listings. He taught me about finding distressed properties, budget renovations, and maximizing rental income. He was the most supportive teacher I had ever known, and the lessons were entirely practical. Meanwhile, the house I had abandoned was imploding. The dismissal letter from Haley's college arrived 2 weeks after I left. Mom called me 17 times that day. I watched the screen light up with her name, Patricia, and deleted every voicemail without listening to the entire message. The snippets I did hear were always the same, progressing from anger to desperation to manipulative guilt. Larry, your sister needs you right now. This is a family crisis. How can you abandon us like this? I maintained zero contact. Through Walter, who still spoke sparingly with Dad, I learned what was happening. Haley's fabricated mental health crisis crumbled when the registrar explained she had failed every single class due to non-attendance. The $40,000 tuition debt was real. Mom was furious, but Haley was still playing the victim, somehow pivoting her academic failure into a critique of the family for not supporting her emotional needs enough. Without me there, as the responsible buffer, the designated good child who made their dysfunction look less bad, Mom and Dad were forced to look at each other. Apparently, they did not like what they saw. Their chaos and financial pressure escalated. My indifference was not passive, it was an active choice. I was too busy building something real to care about the collapse of their fragile facade. My goal was not revenge, but self-worth. And that worth was measured in assignments completed, shifts worked, and lessons learned. The anger was gone, replaced by a cold, practical resolve to never again be dependent on them for anything. I just had to keep going until I reached true independence. I had the knowledge and the resolve. Now I needed the capital. After graduation, the focus shifted from textbooks to blueprints. My first deal was my real thesis project. I graduated college at 24 with a business degree and exactly 0 family members in attendance. Walter came, bringing a small cake and a check for $1,000. Investment capital, he called it. Go make your first deal. That summer, I found a foreclosed property, listed through a bank auction, a 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood that had been empty for 8 months. The yard was wild and the paint was peeling, but the foundation was sound. It scared off move-in ready buyers, making it perfect for me. The bank listed at $52,000. I spent a week researching comparable sales, calculating repair costs, and building detailed budget spreadsheets. I offered $47,000, expecting a counter. They accepted $45,000 within 24 hours. I used Walter's $1,000, plus every penny I had saved from 3 years at the hardware store, as a down payment. I secured a small business loan for the rest, collateralized by the property itself. The loan officer was skeptical of a 24-year-old walking in with renovation plans, but my numbers were solid, and he approved it. The next 6 months were brutal. I worked my hardware store job by day, and worked until midnight or later at the property. I ripped out disgusting carpet and found beautiful hardwood floors underneath that just needed refinishing. I patched, painted, and replaced every outdated fixture, using my employee discount to save on materials. The renovation was not glamorous. It was a constant stream of small, difficult problems. I learned plumbing from YouTube videos and learned basic electrical work by calling in favors from contractors I knew. I installed my first faucet, and it leaked for 3 days before I figured out the forgotten washer. Every mistake was a lesson. I studied permits, regulations, and inspections, treating every obstacle as a step toward professional competence. When I finished, the house was completely transformed, fresh, modern, and clean. I had it professionally appraised, and it came back at $89,000. Through 6 months of sweat equity and $15,000 in materials, I had created $44,000 in value. I listed the house for rent at $1,200 per month. I received 14 applications in the first week and selected a young, stable couple. The rent covered the mortgage, taxes, insurance, and maintenance fund, leaving me a consistent surplus each month. That first property was more than a financial victory. It was a tangible demonstration of my self-worth. I had taken something broken and made it valuable with my own hands and intelligence. I had proved that I could build something real. The surplus went straight into savings, ready for the next deal. With the model proven, growth accelerated. But the most important foundation I laid was not concrete, it was relational. The second property came 8 months later, a duplex. And the third was a small single-family home. The work went faster because I knew what I was doing. By 28, I had 7 properties. By 30, I was running a small real estate investment company with 15 properties generating consistent monthly income. I had built this from nothing. Using the stubbornness my family once hated, I developed a simple philosophy. Treat tenants like people and respond to maintenance requests within 24 hours. My properties were kept in excellent condition, and I charged fair market rates. Word spread, people actually wanted to rent from me. My vacancy rates were consistently low, securing the long-term success of the business. I also started mentoring younger investors who reminded me of my 24-year-old self, hungry, determined, but lacking connections. It was during the closing on a small commercial property that I met Natalie. I was converting the office building into mixed-use retail space, a complex deal full of code violations from the previous owner. Natalie was the real estate attorney handling the closing. She walked into our first meeting sharp, efficient, and carrying a briefcase that looked heavy. Within 5 minutes, she identified 3 potential title issues the previous attorney had missed. Within 10, she had outlined solutions. "You actually read the whole contract," I said, impressed. "Most attorneys just skim the standard stuff." "That is literally my job," she replied, not looking up from her notes. "You would be surprised how many people pay me to do things they could do themselves if they just read the documents." We ended up grabbing coffee after the closing. She had grown up in a trailer park, put herself through law school working 3 jobs, and had 0 patience for excuses. Slept. She liked working with investors who understood what they were buying. Slept. My mom always said I should find a nice, stable man to take care of me. Natalie mentioned during one of our early dates. She meant it as advice. I took it as a warning about what not to do. We clicked immediately. We were 2 people who had built ourselves from nothing and understood that success was not about performance. It was about building something real that could not be manipulated or taken away. She understood family dysfunction, having dealt with an addict father who had repeatedly drained her family's savings. "You know what I love about real estate?" She asked one evening, reviewing contracts at my kitchen table. Buildings do not lie. They do not manipulate. They do not make excuses. Either the foundation is solid or it is not. Everything is measurable, fixable, and improvable. I wish people worked the same way. I had finally found a secure, non-conditional relationship. I was beginning to trust and open up, easing the internal conflict over emotional guardedness that had defined my early 20s. I had built the wealth. Now I was building a healthy life to hold it. Life was stable, but the past always returns, usually when a foundation is threatened. I was 32 and managing 40. 3 properties when Walter got sick. Stage 3 cancer. He was 72 and stubbornly refused extensive treatment, choosing to die on his own terms. I immediately moved back into his house to take care of him during those final months, slowing my business operations to focus on his care. My vulnerability did not go unnoticed. Mom, Patricia, found out about Walter's illness through some distant family grapevine. She must have sensed an opportunity, figuring I would be emotionally soft enough to attempt a connection. She showed up at Walter's house one afternoon, while I was at work. Walter, bless him, met her at the door and did not let her pass the threshold. Patricia, he said coldly, you have some nerve showing up here after what you did to that boy. I am his mother, she replied, trying to sound hurt. I have a right to see my son. You gave up that right when you chose your daughter's fantasy over your son's reality, Walter stated. Larry does not want to see you. Now get off my property. She left, but not before slipping a letter into the mailbox. Walter gave it to me that evening. I almost threw it away unread, but my curiosity finally won. The letter was 3 pages long, a masterpiece of manipulation. She wrote about loving both children equally, how she had done her best, and how Haley had supposedly changed and was now independent. There was no actual apology, only justifications wrapped in victim language. The kicker was the final paragraph. We are having financial difficulties right now. Your father's overtime got cut, and Haley has been struggling to find stable employment. We could really use your help. I know you have been doing well in real estate. Maybe you could give us some advice or help with a loan. Family helps family. Larry, that is what we do. There it was. The real reason for the sudden interest in reconciliation. They needed money. I showed the letter to Walter. He read it, then handed it back with a look of profound disgust. They have not changed at all, he observed. Still using people. Still refusing to take responsibility. Still expecting you to fix their problems. I know, I said. What are you going to do? I thought about the money, the waste of tuition, the canceled birthdays, and the years of emotional starvation. I looked at the letter, which attempted to put their dysfunction back onto my shoulders. Nothing, I said. Absolutely nothing. The ultimate rejection was not confrontation, but indifference. Walter smiled, a genuine look of pride crossing his face. That is my boy. He passed away 3 weeks later, peacefully in his sleep. His death was a painful grief, but also a moment of profound gratitude for the only genuine, unconditional love I had ever known. He left me everything. The house, his savings, and his old truck. The will contained a note. Larry, you were the grandson I was proud to claim, and the son my boy never learned to be. Use this foundation to build something beautiful. Do not let them pull you back down. The inheritance gave me the capital needed to expand the business. But the lesson was the true gift. The fight was over. And I had won by simply choosing not to play their game anymore. Walter left me a foundation. I needed to build something to honor it, Not just in business, but in community. The funeral was small. Dad was the only immediate family member to attend. He looked terrible, hollow-eyed and older than ever. He approached me after the service and quietly told me he had filed for divorce from Patricia the week before. I should have done it years ago, he admitted. I kept thinking things would get better. They never did. Good, I said, offering a quiet, non-judgmental support. We did not have a tearful reconciliation. Slept. But something in his eyes had shifted. He was finally making a choice instead of accepting his fate. I used the proceeds from selling Walter's house to buy a small, 8-unit apartment complex. The renovation was intense. But with Natalie's legal advice and my experience, I filled the units with quality tenants at market rates. The business continued to grow. Slept. Shifting me from scale investor to a serious property manager. Around this time, I received an unexpected message from Haley on social media. Unlike the previous attempts at contact, this one was different. No excuses, no manipulation, just a straightforward update. Larry, I know I do not deserve a response, but I wanted you to know I have been working on myself. Got a job at a restaurant, been there 2 years now. It is not glamorous, but it is honest work, and I am proud of it. I finally understand what you have known all along. That real worth comes from what you build. I showed it to Natalie. 6 months later, Haley sent another update with photos of her simple apartment and a small savings account she had built. No requests, just evidence of a life she was building without anyone's help. I responded with a single line. Proud of you for doing the work. Her reply came hours later. Thank you. That means more than you know. We established a distant, cautious respect. Natalie and I were married 2 years later in a small ceremony. Dad came with a woman named Claire, who treated him like an equal. I accepted his presence as evidence of his sincerity. To fully honor Walter's memory, Natalie and I decided to open a community center in the neighborhood where he had lived. We purchased a massive, abandoned warehouse and spent months planning the renovation. I invested $400,000, and Natalie spent 8 months ensuring we met every code requirement. We named it the Walter Foundation. The space included a computer lab, tutoring rooms, and a large multi-purpose room. Natalie suggested adding a small commercial kitchen and restaurant space where people could get affordable, dignified meals. The center represented everything Walter had taught me, building ladders for others to climb. It was complete, ready for its grand opening. The grand opening of the Walter Foundation was the day I realized I had not just built a business. I had built a life. Over 200 people filled the repurposed warehouse. The computer lab was ready. Dad was there with Claire. Haley came with her boyfriend and their baby son, Owen, whom she had named after Walter's middle name. Natalie's family and our friends filled the room, forming a visible assembly of the chosen family I had spent years building. I stood at the front, looking out at the faces that actually cared, and realized something profound. During my speech, I talked about Walter and the difference between the family you are born into and the family you choose. Walter once told me that the best revenge is not proving people wrong, I said. It is proving yourself right. He showed me that when people try to make you small, you grow until you outgrow them completely. The room was silent. I looked at Dad, whose eyes were wet, and at Haley, who was holding Owen and nodding. Walter chose to reach out to an invisible kid. Dennis chose divorce over continuing the lie. Haley chose work over manipulation. And I chose to leave a house that was never a home to build something real. I raised my voice. The real gift Patricia gave me without meaning to was showing me exactly what not to be. By denying me birthday celebrations, she taught me to celebrate myself every day. By telling me I was nothing, she motivated me to become something. Dad stood up, something he never would have done in his old life, and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "That is my son. That is my boy in every way that matters." Haley left early to put Owen to bed, but not before giving me a real hug. "Thank you," she whispered, "for showing me it was possible to change." "You did that yourself," I told her. "I just stopped enabling the alternative." Dad stayed until the end, helping me stack chairs. "I wasted 20 years being afraid of your mother's anger, afraid of standing up for what was right," he confessed. "The funny part is once I finally did it, I realized the only thing I should have been afraid of was wasting more time being afraid." As Natalie and I locked up, she took my hand. "You know what the best revenge really is?" she asked. "It is not success or money or even happiness. It is indifference. Patricia is out there somewhere, still blaming everyone else. But you have moved so far past her that she is not even a footnote in your story anymore." She was right. I rarely thought about Patricia. Her hold over me had dissolved, replaced by the solid foundation of real relationships and earned success. I am 37 now. Natalie and I have 2 kids who are growing up in a house where love is not conditional. Haley brings Owen over for Sunday dinners. Dad is an active grandfather. We cannot change the past, but we can always choose the future.